Hi, thanks for watching my views and news. Ethiopia, Eritrea border, anything happening there, exclusive information for you. It seems that Ethiopian military has made some decisions regarding deployment. Is the deployment offensive or defensive? On which fronts these new developments are happening on the border? Details for you in this video. Firstly, around a month ago, when PM Abiy delivered a 45-minute long speech uh, claiming access to the sea, calling it Ethiopian natural right, after that we saw mobilization of forces on both sides of the border. Though no official statement from either Ethiopia or Eritrea, but on the ground, military movement was observed. Eritrea beefed up its presence on Ethiopian border near Assab, near Bore, and on some fronts on Tigray, Eritrea border. Ethiopia did the same too. Now we have received more details, new details, fresh information about Ethiopian military movement towards some fronts. What we have learned is that in the past 3 to 4 days, new convoys of Ethiopian military have been seen reaching areas close to Eritrean border. And most of these areas are on Tigray border. Interestingly, it means that the main deployment is on Tigray Eritrea border. Though a far region of Ethiopia is also one of the fronts where new convoys of Ethiopian military have been seen. By the way, rotation of troops is also a routine practice. Troops are deployed to border, then they are rotated. It happens. Military movement to and from border continues in times of peace as well. But this new piece of information indicates that suddenly we are seeing movement of Ethiopian military towards Eritrean border. We'll talk about the objective. Before that, which fronts? A far region of Ethiopia, close to Bore, new convoys of Ethiopian National Defense Force have been seen arriving, firstly. Secondly, Tigray. On several fronts in Tigray, new ENDF deployments have been made. Shiraro is one of these fronts. Shiraro was the first major town which was captured by ENDF and EDF last year. And capture of Shiraro was the start of collapse of TDF. TDF's collapse started from Shiraro back then. To Shiraro, Rama, Zalambasa, we have been able to confirm new troops, ENDF troops have arrived. They have been deployed to these fronts. Adegrat, Zalambasa, Rama, Shiraro, I think 4 or 5 fronts are in Tigray, on Tigray-Eritrea border, where new deployments have been made, and 1 or 2 are in Afar. Question is this deployment offensive or defensive? Whenever there are tensions between the two sides, between two countries, there could be preemptive attacks. Sometimes it happens that there are tensions and then one country makes the first move, calling it preemptive strike. Ethiopia is a little concerned, by the way, that Eritrea could do something as a preemptive strike to prevent any ENDF's military adventure towards a support. It seems to be a defensive deployment to protect from any preemptive strike by Eritrean military, either in Tigray or in other parts of Ethiopia. It seems. Otherwise, there is no point in deploying large number of troops to Tigray border, because the stated goal of Ethiopian military or Ethiopian government is the sea, Red Sea. So, Ethiopian government does not want to reach the sea through Tigray. Obviously, it wants access. If it wants access to Eritrean ports, it wants access to through a far region of Ethiopia. So, deployment to the fronts in Afar makes sense. Deployment to fronts in Tigray does not make sense. If you say that the deployment is offensive, it's not offensive. It's defensive in Tigray, I think. In Afar, it could be either both offensive or defensive, because it could be a way of protecting against any preemptive attack by Eritrean military, or it could be a way of strengthening deployments in Afar for a future operation towards a support. We could see it both ways. Now, can we say that Ethiopian government has decided to launch military operation to take Assab by force? No, we cannot say that. Deployment in Tigray, again, I would say, is defensive. Eritrea might make a move. That is why. In Afar, deployment could be offensive, but the deployment is not as big as Ethiopia would need to make a move towards Assad. I don't think that war is imminent. Maybe slowly, gradually, Ethiopia is deploying more troops to its border to prepare for something big. Or it could be a pressure tactic. Ethiopian military is flexing muscles. Everyone knows that. The military parade in Addis Ababa was a clear flexing of muscles by Ethiopian government. Ethiopian government showed modern weapons. National Defense Day was celebrated. What was the purpose? Purpose was a strong message. Sending a strong message to neighboring countries that we want access to a port. Talk to us, otherwise we'll use military option. So flexing of muscles shouldn't be a surprise for anyone. This deployment, again, is part of that flexing of muscle strategy adopted by Ethiopian PM Abiy. I don't know if the strategy will work or not, but PM Abiy's government is very convinced that it wants access to the sea, no matter what happens. We don't know about the means which the government is going to adopt to achieve this objective. There's clarity on Ethiopian government side that it will use the tools available to gain access to the sea. How will Eritrea see this deployment of Ethiopian National Defense Force on its borders? Obviously, you'll see deployment of Eritrean military as well. Eritrea would do the same. You could see some military maneuvers on both sides of the border. Problem is that no action taken so far to de-escalate the situation. Abiy and Isaias could not meet in Saudi Arabia. Both went there, they did not meet, they returned. No high-level engagement between Ethiopian and Eritrean militaries, between their leaders. So situation overall is very tense. And by the way, I believe that in times of peace, there should be healthy engagement between field commanders, between border units commanders, between top military officers. Because if there is no communication, if there is a lack of communication, sometimes misunderstandings cause conflicts too. I don't know if Ethiopian and Eritrean governments are in touch at some level or not. I don't know. But they should be in touch because the gravity of the situation demands at least opening of some line of communication between Ethiopian and Eritrean militaries. Eritrea will do the same. You'll see more deployments on Eritrea-Ethiopia border as ENDF is beefing up its presence. And you could see statements too in coming days. We are seeing statements from Ethiopian ministers, all day ministers, ambassadors, state media. They talk about access to the sea. And this onslaught is countered by Eritrean government-backed activists, journalists, news outlets, ambassadors. They are bashing Ethiopia, criticizing the government, saying Abiy betrayed Isaias. Overall, the situation is alarming. And if we connect this situation to Israel-Palestine war, Houthis have hijacked an Israeli ship in the sea, from the Red Sea, I think. So tensions already there in the Red Sea. And now when Ethiopia is threatening to gain access to the Red Sea, it will add to already existing ongoing tensions in the Red Sea. And that wouldn't go well with the Red Sea countries. This is what Isaias Afwerki has been communicating to Red Sea countries, to Egypt, to Saudi Arabia, to other big players, that Ethiopian threats should not be taken lightly. If Ethiopia implements its threat, if it starts military operation to get access to the Assad port, whether Ethiopia gets access to Assad port or not, though Ethiopia never mentioned that it wants to gain access to Assad by military means, but Eritrea is propagating this narrative that if Ethiopia tried to gain access to the Red Sea by military means, it would destabilize the entire Red Sea zone, all the Red Sea countries, because Red Sea countries rely on this channel for their oil export, for other exports and imports. These Arab countries, Saudi Arabia, etc., rely a lot on their oil exports. So if oil exports are disrupted, if other exports are disrupted, if the busiest shipping route of the world is disrupted, it would be a matter of concern for all the countries in the region. That is what Isaias has been saying in meetings with Abdul Fattah al-Sisi, with Mohammed bin Salman. So all are monitoring the developments between Ethiopia and Eritrea, while another conflict, Israel, Gaza, is expanding a little. Houthis say they're not scared. They have hijacked the ship, they'll continue attacks. So connect it with Ethiopia-Eritrea tension. Let's assume that Ethiopia decides to mobilize its military toward the Red Sea. What will happen? It could be a disaster for the entire region. So far, the deployment is not offensive. It's mainly defensive. By the way, if Ethiopia tried to enter southern Red Sea zone of Eritrea to move towards Assab, first thing which Eritrea will do is that it will attack Tigray. Eritrea will try to defend Assab, but apart from defending Assab, its main target would be to enter Tigray, to enter Amhara through Sudan. That is why there must be large-scale ENDF deployment on Tigray-Eritrea border, on Sudan-Ethiopia border. ENDF will be overstretched, extremely overstretched, if there is an escalation, military escalation between the two countries. That is why I don't see a war on the cards between Ethiopia and Eritrea, but new deployment of ENDF units to the fronts I mentioned is being reported. Thank you for watching.